Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises to Yahweh Shino Shai, Bahasham Kakotash, double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations unto the ancient 44,000. Brother Kali again with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shino Shai. This video here, I'm more or less just flowing in the spirit, so I can't tell if it would be that long or not because it's a conversation I was having with my wife, right? Because I did a video just now a couple of minutes ago where it is she had a dream about the coffins and whatnot, and I went into it. Now in this conversation now here, she was basically asking the question, why did she just get these kind of dreams and whatnot? Because she only now started learning about the truth to see, right? And she asked that question, and I said, you know what, this will be a lesson to go into. So I had one or two precepts to go in, as I said, I will flow from there, right? So the first thing is that it's prophetic that, for the Lord to cause people to dream dreams and whatnot, which is Joel 2:28 here. I'll read it. It says, and it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. Right? So that's every single person, every man, woman, and child, whether they be Jake or heathen. Right? Because there have been times, where brothers did videos, circulating and whatnot, where, especially Edomites having dreams about the destruction or, about us Jake being salvaged, even the video, the live that I did earlier with the brother Howard, the first video, right, that I uploaded that one on my page, right, it was a live where it was circulating with the Jake with the apostles, and then went into the elders, went into that this Jake was having a dream about, what was happening, and also these women flocking to him because they want to get married and whatnot, right? These dreams are part of prophecy, right? So it goes on, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit. Right? So the Lord said, everybody, we're gonna dream dreams, we're gonna get visions, all these different things. Right? So this is basically the answer to her question. Right? Now again, as I said, it's very prophetic because it's not the first time she had that dream. She said in the first dream, when she dreamed the coffins or whatnot, it's like she could have physically seen it there, could have physically seen the dead bodies and whatnot. Now in this time it's like she can't see it, but she knows, like, the way all the settings is based on her explanation, the way all the settings is, right, and the whole scenery of whatnot of the dream, it's like it involves that, and she more than likely could have gotten that, visual because of her first dream, where she could have actually seen it, right? So she was also confused as to why it is, she getting dreams like this and she don't fully understand it. And I told her, well, for the most part, you belonging to me. The Lord could give you the dream and you relate on to me, because I had a wife before, right? My first wife that was in the truth, right? When I just came into the truth, I should say, she used to get a lot of dreams, and her dreams was very vivid, right? And I still talk about them up to this day because it's prophetic, right? Now she gone back out in the world or whatever it is, that is her and her business, right? It's like the Lord gave me a few dreams before that prophetic, but he also, like me having my wife, right? It always ends up with me with a wife being the one to get the dreams and they relay it onto me, right? And me personally, I like it that way. So that way it helps me to groom them better, because when they get in that dream, it it's like easier for them to be like, wait, boy, my husband really saying it's true, 'cause, women had hard. The apostle and them was always say you could never get a woman to come into the shoot. The day a woman come into the shoot, or the day a woman actually bring another woman for you, is when a woman really need truth. Because as I mentioned in the other video with Brother Howard, which is the second live we did, right, is that these women and them, they're not gonna give up the liberty they have that the devil give them in this kingdom for something to them that seem like a hindrance, right? When they could make all the money, they could do all the shit they want and get away with it, they're not gonna give up that to be submissive to no man, right? So the day that they could do that, right, they could bring a woman, another woman for you, is the day they really understand what this whole thing is about, right? Because that's their major stumbling block, right? So I glad that the Lord, revealed those dreams unto them, and the Lord still give me dreams, ever so often. So to what you're bashing your foot, you're bashing your shell for that, right? But everything does happen at an appointed time, So even though she may not understand it now, right? Even though I explained it to her, some dreams that she told me about that even I didn't understood, is also to be put forth to the Akim, so the Akim could hear about it, and they themselves may be able to say, well, hey, I think this part act means X, Y, and Z according to the scripture, this, that, and the other, right? And, eventually I could relay the message back onto her for her to have the understanding. Or even if none of us understand right now, or we understand a little, let me get this precept. It's 1 Corinthians 13:9. It says, for we know in part and we prophesy in part. This is also a scripture I quoted to her, right? Because just as how all that we know from since the truth sprung back out, and up to this very day, to this very moment, all that we know is what we could prophesy about, right? Even in Romans 15:4, which I'm going to get after, right? Everything written aforetime was written for our learning, right? So even from way back then, way before the truth sprung back up, when we got the understanding, the Lord have everything recorded in His Bible, right, in His book, where it is we could go back and get the understanding of what is already happened, right? Because these things what we know about is what we could prophesy about. But even though we know, for instance, the mark of the beast is going to come, right? We don't know exactly how it is it's going to be, or what's going to cause it, what's going to be that actual, event or tragic. How to put it is like I lost for words, But we know we don't know exactly what it is going to cause that to actually bring it forth, because we can't say tomorrow the chip gonna come out or the next week or next year. We don't know when exactly, but we know it coming. Same thing with the chariots of the Lord, The Lord gave us a distinction, right? When the chariots basically going to come back, it's like according to Job 5:19, right? Where the Lord saying the sixth shovel he shall be saved out of it, right? So the seventh won't touch it. The seventh is the missiles, right? So we know the within that time frame when the missiles flying and looking to blow up America, the chariots going to appear in that timing, right? But even with that, we don't know when the missiles will not fly, right? So we know in part and prophesy in part. So it's like the same thing with her dream, right? The Lord may have given you the dream now, but that doesn't mean that He gave you it for you to understand it now, right? It's like He gave you a warning, that X, Y, and Z going to happen, and then when the time comes, you get the understanding and be like, oh, this is what my dream means. You understand? So it's for us to always stay vigilant and stay, on point, because the Lord have His reasons for doing everything that He's doing. We can't question why the Lord, if we don't understand it now, why it is He sent it now. Just send it where we really need it. That not making any sense, because we don't have the heart of the Lord, which is His mind, to know and to counsel Him and whatnot. He knows what's best. So let me get the Romans 15 and 14. 15 and 4, Salakia. And say, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. Right? And as they say, might have hope. So, all the things that happened from before, right, it was written for our learning. We know there were things that the Lord told Moses and John not to write down, because it wouldn't have been, applicable, or necessary for our salvation. Everything that we need for our salvation is written, Again, the Lord have his reasons for doing everything, so we can't say, well, why the Lord didn't tell me this and why the Lord didn't tell me that? Because, we understand a lot of dark sayings and deep mysteries, but the deeper mysteries, the Lord know that, hey, it would have bugged us out. Remember, we still in this flesh, where it is we can't comprehend, the vast knowledge of the heavens. Remember, when we bodies we change, we will not have that vast knowledge, right? Because especially now, where our bodies are even more contaminated than in the early stages of this devil's rule, even since the beginning of time, right? Back then, when women were popping out children like that, it used to hurt according to the curse that the Lord put upon them, but not as much as how it would hurt now, because the body's weak, because of the defiled bread and whatnot that the Lord prophesied would happen to us, So, yeah, everything written aforetime is written for our learning, so we know it's for an appointed time, which, let me read this, Ecclesiastes 3 and verse 1. It says, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, right? A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get, and a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to cast away, a time to rend, and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time of war, and a time of peace, right? So you see in here, the Lord give us many examples of, the times that we have, that our time for everything. As my mother always used to say, there's a place and a time and a place for everything, right? And, you can say more or less she got that from the scripture, because, again, verse 1 says there's a season and a time to every purpose under heaven, right? So, when the time is right, that dream will become even more vivid unto her, whether the Lord show her first, right, or to me, or to another brother, right? But one way or the other, the Lord will make it known unto us, right? Because the dream was shown for a reason, and as I said, from my interpretation of this, what she told me is that I know there's a lot of death coming, based on all the prophecies, the Lord told us about, right? The Lord prophesied and let us know, hey, a lot of death is coming, so we can't afford to lapse, I think even in let's see here, yeah, this is Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. It says that the thing that had been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there's no new thing under the sun, right? So there's nothing new under the sun. There's all these things that are happening, because we know the stories of Babylon, when King Nebuchadnezzar got this dream, right? He was one of the flesh, right, that the Lord pour his spirit upon for him to get that dream, right? And he had one of his prophets interpret it, and I see at a point too, because as I'm thinking about it, the Lord used his prophet, right? She relayed her dream onto a prophet, which would be me, and I could relate on to other prophets, right? If it is I don't understand, you know. And so in any case, in any case with any brother, any wife, you might have a family member and whatnot. Because there are many people that came to me and said, boy, I dreamed this and I dreamed that and whatnot, you know. And some of them I explained it to, and others I just, I just listened, and I never really say anything much because I know there is demons, right? It would make sense we say a breath on them, but because most of the time the Lord could have them say that to you for you to have the understanding, and that person to just deliver the message to you, but not for them to understand, that kind of way. So it's not new under the sun where it is, even Joseph is concerned with Egypt, right? When Pharaoh got the dream, Joseph interpreted that as well. He also being an Israelite and a prophet of the Lord, right? So it's the same thing here now. It's not new under the sun where the Lord using dreams and visions and whatnot to warn the people, also having his prophets in the midst to, break it down, warn the people, tell them about what's to come. It's nothing new, right? So we just have to enjoy it. We have to, go along with it at the end of the day and have faith in Yahweh, sure that everything gonna be okay, right? That's the faith we have in Yahweh, right? So yeah, I guess that would be it on this lesson here. I hope it was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shai. And until next time, I say Shalom.